Texas Governor Greg Abbott seemingly has no intention of complying with an emergency injunction by the Supreme Court telling the federal government that they may remove razor wire at the border between Mexico and Texas, and that Texas must allow federal Border Patrol agents in. Here's video of Texas state and national troopers installing more razor wire at the Eagle Pass crossing point. Abbott claimed he had to act on matters of border security as he felt the Biden administration and the federal government had failed to do so. In a statement released by Abbott's office, the governor said, quote, "The federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. The executive branch of the United States has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states, including immigration laws on the books right now. President Biden has refused to enforce those laws and has even violated them. The result is that he has smashed records for illegal immigration." Abbott added that the founding fathers had predicted the possibility of a president who, quote, "does nothing to stop external threats like cartels smuggling millions of illegal immigrants across the border, and said states had a right to protect themselves from external threats." So here we are. Obviously, the Supreme Court will hear this case, so it'll go beyond the emergency injunction, but I mean, he can say everything he's saying here, but he does actually have to follow what the Supreme Court says. States can't just ignore that. You can be frustrated about it. You can want a change in the administration, but it's pretty well established that the federal government has control over this. I absolutely understand the frustration of state officers, border officials, people who live on the border, but it's frustrating that the federal government has not fixed this problem, but it is the federal government's to fix.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that. One, it's important to remember that the posture of this case is not that no one's defending the border. The posture is that the federal government is the one with the responsibility to defend the border. And their argument, the administration's argument, has been having this razor wire up is actually impeding federal border enforcement officers' ability to do their job. Moreover, there has been obstruction because Republicans are not agreeing to a border funding bill that would create more funding for those border officers which are being thwarted in doing their jobs, and also ostensibly more funding for administrative law judges and the like who can process these asylum claims and immigration claims and decide which are meritorious and speed up the process for legal immigration as well. What we're looking at is the consequences of backlogs that are not going to be magically resolved by more razor wire, because people, I gotta tell you, are fleeing situations a lot more dire than razor wire. And the last thing I would say is that this really is, there are cases, I should say, where because the court doesn't have constitutional authority, doesn't have any enforcement mechanism, there are arguments where people say, well, just ignore the court, just don't care, it doesn't matter what they're doing. In this case, the cases between the state of Texas and the federal government, and the federal government has the legal backing and the court decision, which now says it can enforce. The one person who does have enforcement power is the federal government. Right. So I saw some like kind of joke tweets about
Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it.
Right.
Kind of the Jackson standoff.
I saw people making jokes like, can we not do World War III and the Civil War at the same time? Can we pick one? And it does feel like there's a lot of weird bombast and posturing here coming out of Texas that it is exactly that. It's just bombast and posturing.
Well, yeah, it's frustration. This is nothing new. I remember when I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for a couple months back in 2010, and the governor of Arizona at the time, Jan Brewer, had there was the Supreme Court case, or eventual, I think it went to the Supreme Court about about deporting or asking for people's papers when you stop them to determine whether they were legal, and that too was ruled a federal government power, not something that the states can be deputized to handle.
Wasn't that determined to be unconstitutional? Because it basically means, that wasn't like a federal preemption issue. That was you're not allowed to kind of racially profile people in their cars.
I think there was a border security aspect of it too, but
you remember better than I do.
Yeah. So anyway, this is nothing new. Frustration with border states and how the federal government approaches the issues is there, but you have to have to win elections, have to vote out people. To your point, people could direct some of their frustration to Republicans not supporting this bill. Obviously, some Republicans are saying that they think this bill doesn't go nearly far enough, so they're not going to support a weak bill. And then obviously I think you're not wrong necessarily that they don't want to fix the problem under the Biden administration, have Biden end up looking good.
Yeah, so Democrats are very eager to get this funding to Ukraine, and these things are batched together. So Democrats are really, in a way that I frankly disagree with, trying to make this work by allowing a lot of what I would describe as more draconian aspects of what Republicans want to happen on the border into this package. So far,
I don't want to fund Ukraine more than, so I would also be against it because, frankly, just erecting more. We need to do more processing of people through the border. I'd rather that than border security, and I really don't want to send more money to Ukraine, and a lot of the American people don't either. So this is not a great compromise from a Robby standpoint.
Yeah, well,
or from a Briahna standpoint, I guess.
Indeed,
how about that?
Indeed. And look, we should continue to follow this fight because Biden said, I think it was last Friday, that he's hopeful for a deal coming through soon. I don't know if that's just wish casting, though, because the incentives really are teed up against him. Republicans are benefiting enormously from the perception that there's a border crisis that Biden's doing nothing about. And, of course, the distribution of Congress means that they can ensure that Biden is unable to do anything about it ever. If we're going to get into this world where we're ignoring the Supreme Court and we're expanding executive powers, hey, who knows what Biden might decide to do ultimately to actually resolve the border crisis, but I don't think we're quite there.
We will find out. We'll continue to follow matters at the boarding, and we'll have more Rising right after this.